Hey, I'm Brian Van, sportbiketracker.com, and today we're going to break down the Motion Pro Rev 2 throttle kit install on our 2018 STG Ninja 400 project bike. The Rev 2 throttle kit install also requires installing Motion Pro's universal stop-start switch. This project is fairly intense. You're going to have to be able to do some wiring, remove all the bodywork on your bike, and replace the throttles and cables. It's really important to note, this is a safety item, okay? If you f this up, it can result in a crash. It can result in injury. If you're thinking about doing this yourself and you watch this video and you're like, man, I don't know, I think this is a little bit over my head, take it into a qualified licensed tech, pay the bill, and get the work done right, because this part is worth having on your motorcycle. This part has a lot of flexibility built into it, okay? Its primary use, in my opinion, is if you're doing track days or road racing, it's gonna be that short throw. Right now, we have the most aggressive cam in there, and you can see that's wide open throttle right there. That's nothing. That is way less than a quarter turn. It's gonna make it easy to get this thing wide open. There are 5 different cams that ship with this. You can go from the stock ratio, everything in between, the real aggressive, the 50 that we have in there now, or they have this RR cam, which is kind of the best of both worlds. It's a little more progressive early, right? And it helps you still get to wide open throttle almost as fast as the bigger cam. We may ultimately end up putting that in here. I want to get this bike done and I'll take it out and ride it for the first time. And I just want to see what it feels like when you're in that corner and you're getting back on the throttle. And if it feels like it's too aggressive, we can always put this cam in. It's a super easy process to fine tune that a little bit. Installing this universal start-stop switch on this bike, I'm going to walk you through all of the steps it takes to get this wired into your stock connector, okay? So you get a good end result. We're not gonna show you, all the dry stuff, me soldering the wires or any of that. You can use butt connectors. I personally prefer solder along with shrink tubing. It's just more of a permanent fix, but we're gonna cover which wire goes to which will help you install this on your bike. Your end result is this. You now see over here on the throttle side, this is a whole hell of a lot cleaner than that OE throttle is. Here's that universal start-stop switch. Here's our brake master. And this is just gonna open the door for more adjustments here in the control area too. Another great reason to do that is opening that up to be able to move things around so they suit the rider better. Before we jump into the actual install, I just wanna bang on the safety gong again, man. It's just so important that when you're done, you double and triple check to make sure that you have a good solid throttle return. Focus on the 2 steering stops, the 2 extremes. Get it all the way against the stop, grab that throttle and let go. And you want a good positive snap, never slowing down, and do that all throughout the handlebar sweep. Also look at the cables and make sure that there is no binding, there's nothing being pinched when you sweep the bars back and forth. That is key. If you're not comfortable doing this project, once you see what it takes during this video, I'm going to say this again, take it to a licensed technician. This is a safety item. If you're interested in what it takes to install this, just stay tuned. Caleb's going to show you all the steps from beginning to end. Like I said in the intro, installing the Motion Pro Rev 2 quick turn throttle on the Ninja 400 is also going to require installing their universal start-stop switch. When I say universal, we're going to have to wire this in to the OEM connector that is attached to the OEM throttle and switch pod assembly right here. I'm going to cover this in more detail. We're going to show you everything you need to know there, with the exception of showing you how to solder the wires. That's just like watching paint dry. You can use butt connectors if you want to do it that way, or you can solder and shrink tube. That's what we're going to do. But I'll make sure to show you which wire goes where very clearly to help you through the install. I have all the bodywork removed from the motorcycle now. That would be the front fairing, the sides. That is going to give me the access that I need in order to install the Rev 2 on the Ninja 400. We've got race bodywork on this now. We've already taken all the street stuff off. So I didn't show you that because it may not apply to everyone, but this is essentially the state of disassembly you're going to need to be in order to get access to install this kit. Before I go any further, it's really important anytime you work on your controls, especially a throttle, that you get everything just right. The routing is right. There is no binding. That you sweep the bars back and forth to make sure that in every position, the throttle returns smoothly. You make a mistake with that, the throttle can get stuck and it can cause an accident. If you look at the steps I'm going to take installing this on our project bike and you're like, man, I don't think that's for me, take it in and have a licensed technician do it. We're going to begin over here on the clutch side of the bike by removing this retaining clip from the OEM throttle cables that hold the cables to the throttle body. I've got my finger behind the clip here in the back, pushing outward to release it. Once I've freed it in the center here, and it's really important you don't destroy this because you're going to reuse this per the instructions. And now I've released it. This will allow the cables, once there is proper slack, to be removed from the throttle body. In order to get the cables off on this bike, part of it is due to the cam that we have in there right now. Right, we've put an aftermarket throttle tube in here to make it a little shorter turn than stock. So I just can't get enough slack to remove the cable. So we're just going to go ahead and disassemble our OE throttle. We have 2 screws right there. Split the halves. Throw some stuff on the floor. Okay, that comes off pretty easily. Now we've got plenty of slack. It's important to remember these cables are going to route differently. They're not going to pass behind the frame right here. They're actually going to come around and through there. You'll reuse some of the OE mounting points. You're just not passing through this fork leg and in that slot in the frame. While we're here, we'll go ahead and disconnect the brake switch connectors. Once you've got the brake light switch disconnected, you just release this tang right here. Right, and we're going to need to reuse this connector end. Okay, we're going to cut and splice in the universal switch unit from Motion Pro. Now we can go over and pull the cables off the bike. At this point, you can see we have a lot more slack, so this is relatively easy to do. And we'll just slide these through. These go through a metal hoop. So we need to free this one up here. For the other cable, we're going to need to remove the clip. This is a step we'd have to perform down the road anyways. I'm going to try and do this just using a screwdriver here. Just opening it up just enough. We'll have to compress it back around the Motion Pro cables. That should work out. Okay, so bend that just a little bit. Now we'll be able to get the cable out like so. There's your 2 OE cables. Okay, the Motion Pro Universal Handlebar Mount Stop-Start Switch comes with instructions and a wiring diagram, and it also does come with a note of caution. If this is something that you're not comfortable doing, this is semi-advanced, take the bike in, have a professional do it, okay? It's important that you get the work done correctly. One of the things I want to do is I want to identify the difference in length, okay? Because this is going to mount in the same position the OEM one did. Difference in length between these harnesses to see if I need to make any adjustment. And I'm going to want to trim this one, probably right about in this area, because I want to leave myself enough wire to work with so that I'm able to splice it and solder it neatly into this one. I'm going to solder it and use shrink tube. You can, if you prefer to. You could use, good quality butt connectors that shrink. Okay, those work pretty good. You could try to get new terminal ends. Okay, that to me seems like a whole bunch of work to get the right terminal ends for this. I don't have the terminal ends, so I'm just going to go ahead and just solder it in. And I think for most people that's going to work well. You're going to want to reuse this protective boot as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give myself about that much to work with, okay? Before I make that cut there, I'm going to take a look at this, and clearly this is significantly longer than the OE one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut and leave just a little bit of overlap. So it's going to be just a little bit longer than OEM. So I'm going to cut that one there. And then I'll cut the Motion Pro one right here. So I've got more than enough, and don't be afraid to double check, triple check, more than enough length to work with. There are pieces on this that I'm not going to use that you may on your Ninja. We will not be using the brake light switch. So we're not going to wire that in. I'll probably go as far as to actually strip this out of this switch. That's something I'm going to do off camera. If you want to do that, kind of on your own there. So let's go ahead and cut back the harness protector. Slide this one off here. This protective boot, slide that off now. Probably should have slid that over before I cut it back. That's not a big deal. Slide that over, move it out of the way. Wires that we're going to use, and looking at the connector that we have, I'm going to show you how to line this up here with your Motion Pro. Okay, now that we've established length, right, different approaches for wiring this in, I'm going to show you which wire goes to which wire. Here's the OE connector right here. The yellow with the red tracer and the red are the two that are going to be connected to the on-off switch portion of the Motion Pro switch. They use the black and the blue with black wires. They can be found right here. The blue with the black will be soldered to the red. The all black will be soldered to the yellow and red from the OE connector. Starter switch. Looking at the connector like this, the one on the top here, and you can see the lock, this wire is black and red. This is going to be connected to the white wire on the starter switch portion. The one on the lower port on the connector will be soldered to the yellow one. The gray and the red with black will not be used for this project. That's set up for certain motorcycles that will turn the front headlight off when the motor is turning over to preserve the cold cranking amps for the starter itself. The Ninja doesn't have that. You're going to know clearly if yours does have it, because you're going to have 8 wires in the connector instead of the 6 that we see here. As I said earlier, I'm not going to show you the whole process of me, taken the time to solder in and shrink tube each one of these wires, but we will show you the finished project. Okay, the cables do not come lubricated from the factory. Motion Pro recommends that you lubricate them. So we're going to show you how to do that right now. This is a messy process, and that's why I'm down here at the trash can in the back of the shop. You're going to start by putting the rubber grommet around the line like so. Okay, there's the end cap, and then assemble the unit. The upside is the Motion Pro throttle cable luber. Shit smells pretty good, man. So go ahead and thread it down. You need to make sure that it's tight and it seals. No need to use hand tools or anything, just use your hands. Once you've got that cranked down, you need to get the straw from the cable lube can, insert it in there. You want to make sure it's tight. Okay. Hold it down for a few seconds. It'll build pressure and then you'll hear it kind of relax. It takes a few tries before you get some cable lube coming out the other end. Right there. And you're all set. Go ahead and disassemble. Make sure you wipe the cables down to clean off all the excess. Okay, now we're ready to install the cables on the bike. Everything's lubricated. Remember, you have a pull and a push cable. This cable is now going to sit on top of the tripper. We're going to show you that in a second, which is going to make this the pull cable, okay? So that is the one that is going to pull the throttle body open, so that one needs to loop over the top. So as we pass these through, we want to make sure that we keep track of which one's which. It's going to make our lives a little bit easier. So the way this installs now, just through the frame like this. And this is the first time I put it in, and it's quite possible that I'll do this and be like, you know what, I don't love that. May need to go back in there and make a change. This is kind of our first run here. Okay, make sure that one stays on top. We'd need to get this bracket installed. I'll slide that over the cable. And give it a little crimp. Like so. Roll that over the cam. Still a little cable lube on here. Just a touch slippery. So get that slid through. Do the same here for the return cable. Let's make sure I've got that retaining clip rolled out of the way here. Slid in like so. Now the clip. Okay, I made another adjustment. Gonna give this a shot, kind of get that clip lined up, keep some pressure on it. Yeah, that feels pretty good. Okay. Get that down into position. Yeah, I'm definitely digging that a lot more. Okay, we're getting close. The cables are going to be routed like you see right here, just over the top of the clip-on bar like this. Let's go ahead and get our swing assembly. I want to slide this into position right now. I'm not going to tighten anything up, but I do want to get it on the bars and just get it resting there. Okay, before we put the throttle housing on, let's get our switch assembly into position. I'm not going to tighten it up, but I do want to get it installed between the master cylinder and our throttle housing. Take the 2 screws out. You're going to split it open like that. Rotate it over. What's cool about this stuff too is it has a rubber bumper in it, okay? That when you compress it, it bites onto the clip-on tube, so it's super nice. There is no need to drill locator holes in your clip-ons with this kit. So just get these started, kind of let that chill out there. There we go. Not going to tighten it up really yet. Just enough, kind of get it in there in position. That's where it's going to ride. Okay, now it's time to choose which cam. Remember, this is variable rate, okay? We're going to save all these in case you want to tune it. On my Jitzer 1000, I went with the RR cam. On this Ninja 400, we're just going to come right out of the gate with the biggest cam, which is the 50, okay? Go ahead and slide your throttle tube in. You'll notice on this side it's recessed. On this side it's flush. You're going to slip this into the recessed side. Those 3 tabs will line up like so. Go ahead and slide that over your clip-on bar like that. Now you can bring the cables over. You want to slide the boot back a little bit. Bring the cables over into the position they're going to ride and insert them into your cam. Start with the pull, and we'll finish with the return here. Please note that I already have a thin film of grease on my clip-on tube. It's something I like to do to make sure everything there is nice and smooth, and that's part of our regular maintenance when we're working on the bikes. Take that apart, make sure it's good and clean. Once you've done that, go ahead and slide the 2 halves of the throttle housing together. There is a ridge where the 2 cables come together that slides into a valley that's in the throttle housing. You want to make sure that's all lined up. It goes together flush. Then pull the boot over. That's going to help hold it in place. Now we can get the 2 fasteners that actually clamp that down onto your clip-on tube. We've got a set of Woodcraft clip-ons on the bike right now. You can install this kit. You should be able to install this kit without any issue on a stock clip-on. Now, that is where I'm going to start. I'll put some torque to this now. It's a 4 mil. Okay. Now, a lot of play in that throttle. We need to adjust the cables. The 2 adjustments are right over here. I'm going to go on the other side of the bike so I can see which cable has how much slack in it as I begin to adjust it. Okay, we're into the home stretch right now. Just some of the final details before we really, make sure that there's no binding, that there's no clearance issues. I'm going to go ahead and tighten up our start-stop switch. I like the position that I've got the throttle in right now. So we're going to begin with this. And that holds nice and tight. Really dig that. We will double check our torque here and at the throttle housing. This really cleans the bars up on this side too. Assuming that this is our final adjustment, or when you make your final adjustment, you want to make sure that you slide the protective boots back over, like so, and that you've also taken and tightened up these little lock wheels here on your cables. Okay, so good to go there. It's time for grips. Motion Pro supplies a set of grips that are actually pretty sweet with this kit. We're going to install those now. If you've seen me do this before, you already know I like to use grip glue. Before we put it on, I've got this side all lubed up with that Motion Pro cable lube because my hands were just saturated in it and I was rotating the throttle, so we're going to go ahead and just use a little Maxima suspension clean. Wipe that off. I've removed the grip from the other side. I'm going to show you a little trick that I use to prevent grip glue from getting underneath the throttle tube. So before I put the grips on this side, I mean, I literally just want to get it just over the edge of that, okay? Like so. If you've done grips before, you already know they are two different internal diameters. The larger of the two, which is on the bottom, is for your throttle side. And note, this throttle tube has ridges on it too, so it's going to really kind of hold it nice and tight. With that said, my preference is still with the grip glue. Make sure you have what it's going to take to clean up here a little bit. I like to drizzle a little bit inside the grip. Do that from each end. And then I have this old screwdriver, just real quickly, just kind of rotate around, clean that up. Okay, get the grip on there, and you want to make that a pretty quick move. Get it lined up. Super important here, notice how I have a gap between the end of the grip and that throttle housing. You want to make sure that if you're able to wiggle that at all, which this is fairly tight, that there is no way that grip is going to touch the throttle housing. Once you've done that, come on here on the end, wipe off your excess before you pull the tape. Got to just find the end of the tape here. There it is. And kind of pull out. Like so. And when you do it that way, you ensure that there is no way you're going to get any grip glue in between your clip-on tube and the back side of that throttle tube. Kind of line that up. Make sure everything looks good. Now we'll go do the other side. Same thing here on the other side. Make sure you have something to wipe off your excess with. There's a lot of different methods for installing grips. Glue is the messiest. It's the one I prefer because once they're on there with glue, they just don't move. That's really what I prefer. Kind of just turn it around a little bit, make sure you've got good coverage everywhere in there with the glue. I will safety wire the ends as well. Okay, we're getting close to being ready to wrap this thing up. Now we want to bring the harness over and get that plugged in and feed that back through the frame in the same location it was with the OEM throttle. All right, that is plugged in, all nice and secure. And we'll go through and, you know, possibly even right up here would be a good spot for a cable tie to secure it. For now, we're just going to leave it because we're going to be converting this into a race bike over the course of the next month or so. And I'm gonna have this all torn back down and put back together. So we'll take a closer look then, but for now that's going to work out just fine. We're ready to put the bodywork back on the bike and make sure that we have no binding of the throttle and everything has proper clearance. Okay, so to wrap this up, it is super important that you sweep the handlebars and then check your throttle return. You can see how positive that is. That's a really quick, solid snap back. You want to try it in each position, focusing most at the extremes, the locks on both sides. While you're sweeping the bars back and forth, I want you to take a good look at your cables. Make sure you don't have anything that's binding or pinching. And realistically, you know, with this, you need your body work on the bike. You know, this is kind of the last step. You double check it. Double check the free play in the throttle, set that where you like it best. Another good test is to actually start the bike, let it warm up a little bit, and without touching the throttle, sweep the bars back and forth. If you've got the cables overly tight, what you'll find is as the cables move and flex a little bit, you'll hear the idle pick up, okay? If you hear that, that's an indication that you're just way too tight on the cables. You have to go back and start over, loosen them up. Right? Remember I showed you take the slack out of the cable down by the throttle bodies and then begin again. It's really important when you're working on anything throttle related. If you're not comfortable doing the steps that we've shown you in this video, this is a big safety item. Crashes, injuries can result from this up. That's the bottom line. If you don't feel comfortable doing it, take it into a licensed tech, pay to have it done. This Motion Pro Rev 2 throttle kit is super bitchin', especially if you're riding on the racetrack. If you have any questions, comments, just leave it in the comment section of this video. I answer each and every one of those myself. If I've missed something here in the video, I'll be happy to answer that and help you get your project done. I'm Brian Van, SportbikeTrackGear.com.